It's not a big fan of Christmas.
And welcome to the program. It's another edition of Behind the Law right here on Bud 94.1. Thank you for spending some of your weeknights here with us, 8 p.m. every single weeknight on our favorite radio station. You can also join us about 4 o'clock p.m. on Facebook, Instagram. All you need to do is follow at Behind the Law Radio, and you can watch and interact with us right there. Ask us any questions you want. Today on the program, a lot of news to discuss. We're also going to talk about Lake Brantley again, about the old active shooter drill. We're going to have Michael Lawrence come in from Seminole County Public Schools and give us a little response on that as well. But first, before further ado, let me introduce my good friend and co-host to my left, Allie Mack. Hi, Allie Mack. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
I can't see you. We have like a Christmas tree in the middle of us or something.
What did you call it?
What is that? That is not a tree. What is that?
Green
Christmas
corn?
leaves.
It's ugly. I mean, I don't know. Who bought it? Who bought
You
it?
did.
I didn't buy it.
You have
Your
green
money
taste.
I would never
It's your money.
I would
Your
probably my money, but not my taste at
Your
all.
money did.
Directly to her left elbow, rubbing elbows, is Orlando radio legend and the face of Bud 94.1, Mick Dolan. Mick, how are you, sir?
Good.
Good to see you. How was your weekend? Everything good?
Yeah.
Any
I
parties?
actually won $20 on the.
Oh, we forgot to
Your
ask.
cruise was this weekend.
I forgot the
You know what? I
old
was
St.
hoping
Mick
that you did
cruise.
forget it.
Old St. Mick cruise this weekend. I totally forgot. How was it?
It's good.
You won a couple bucks.
I won $20 on the slots.
Oh my goodness. So was
that
it?
never happens, by the way.
No one fell off the boat. I
Nobody
presume.
fell off the boat. They had the nets
Thank
up.
goodness. I was worried sick. They put up the net. So hopefully this is the first of many to come in the future.
Was there a lot of people there?
Yeah,
Or you-
yeah. Well, they like their gambling now.
Yeah.
Gotta win stuff. Gotta win stuff. Well, plus, all the games on the big screen, they got big screens all over the place
Right.
now. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's a party boat.
It is. It's a fun party. That's a fun afternoon
Got
too.
to see your Tennessee Vols.
Nice. Thank you very much. Beat up
And
on
my
Memphis.
Kansas Jayhawks.
I know. 2 wins, 2 big wins.
That was on Friday, right? No,
I
Saturday.
think Kansas and Tennessee are on a collision course
Me
for
too.
for
And
a
I can
date
hardly
in
wait.
March. You
Because
know,
we've got
I know. We'll definitely be watching that one together. Maybe we'll do it on the boat.
Yeah.
Joining us as always, behind the scenes, answering your questions at Behind the Law Radio is the beautiful Brianna. Hi, Brianna. How are you? She waved. No, she did the little
The salute.
Salute.
I don't think that was a very proper salute, if you want the truth, but there you go. Thank you.
Well, she used the right hand.
Dishonorable is what that
I
was.
made the mistake one time posing for a Facebook picture, and it was my uncle's Navy hat.
Yeah.
He was a colonel.
Okay.
And I had it on, and I went like this.
Right.
The left hand. Oh my God. Oh.
Off with his head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I am very excited in a few moments to introduce a very good friend of the show, a great lawyer in town, Jordan Ostroff. We're going to ask him some questions about his practice, what he does, and how you can help. And he deals a lot with public schools as well. So I think also in the second half of the show, we bring in really a good friend of mine who I haven't seen in a while. I'm looking forward to seeing Michael Lawrence, the communications officer for Seminole County Public Schools, to address really one thing in particular, right? And there have been more news articles about this today. Newly released 911 calls give more insight into the chaos that unfolded at Lake Brantley High School during an unannounced code red drill. Look, I love Sheriff Dennis Limmer too. I mean, he is fantastic. What a great guy. And he said we're not going to do this anymore. I appreciate that, Sheriff, because I don't think that we really should. The 911 calls showed different reactions to the calls from parents. One 911 call says, "No, ma'am, it's just a test. They're not letting the students know about it," as a dispatcher told one parent. But another one says, to a parent who was calling in, "It looks like it could be a drill, but I can't confirm anything. I'd try to contact the school if I were you." I mean, we don't even know what to tell the 911 people about getting these calls, you know?
Didn't anybody
That's
prep them? You're like, how could you not?
Look, I don't
Thing,
know.
it's
I
something
don't
so
know.
serious like that.
But
Well, they got our attention.
yeah, they definitely got our attention, no doubt about it. But we will ask Michael Lawrence what Seminole County has to say about this as well. I'm not bashing anyone, and I get the dichotomy between wanting it to be a surprise in a way, to where we really do prepare, but
These days, surprises like that we don't need.
I mean, in the age of social media and how fast the information is transmitted from that school property to the parents and to the media even immediately, hey, I don't know. I just don't know that we can do that blindfolded anymore.
I'm surprised one of the parents hadn't filed a lawsuit for
Maybe
this,
they have.
because I'm sure their kids are,
And
so traumatized. They're just, maybe don't want to go back to school or.
I don't know. Even though I'm a lawyer too, I almost hate to see a lawsuit like that filed. I would like to maybe have a little town hall about it and how we can make sure it doesn't happen again.
Well, that's how we ought to do it.
You know?
I mean, don't go off and file a lawsuit all of a sudden.
I know.
Just give it.
But we will get
chance to
the
settle.
we'll get the response here in about 30 minutes from Michael Lawrence from Seminole County in a truly Allie Mack story over the weekend. A couple's tradition of giving to others every year extended to their wedding day with their guests taking part. You know the story?
I saw that.
Do you want to tell the story?
So I guess they used to always, before they got married, donate toys for whatever organizations for kids. But they incorporated that during their after their nuptials, where they took all their guests to a toy store, and then they got to pick a bunch of toys to give to charity.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's good.
Isn't that nice?
Brad Bond
Awesome.
and his brand new wife Jessica, on their very first date about 7 years ago, wanted to do something different for a first date. So they went in and bought toys from Target for Toys for Tots. And so on their wedding date over the weekend, you know what they did? They took the entire wedding party to Target, gave everyone a $10 gift certificate to buy toys as opposed to gifts. But the whole point of it was people weren't just using the $10. They were going to use significantly more to buy toys for Tots. So God bless you, Brad and Jessica Bond. Great story coming out of Central Florida over the weekend. I went to a farm for one yesterday. My only real day off, I was at a farm. It's bad enough when you are a horse owner because, my daughter rides the horses all the time. That's
Was she
expensive.
competing?
Oh, no.
Oh.
This was like, we wanted to go see this other farm. Now, these people, great people, they have a miniature donkey, 3 horses, a pig, like a pet pig,
Can you ride that?
and 3 goats.
Pig.
Now, no. Now, I literally, Sophia was crying as we left because I went and buy her a donkey. And I'm like, come on, this has got to be some kind of joke.
Oh, buy her a donkey.
It's a
Of course
small
not.
horse, right?
It's a small horse.
Yeah, so, that was fun, but now I have to hear about buying donkeys and goats and things, so no one likes that, I guess. But
Aw.
what are you
Would
gonna
she
do?
would she ride the donkey?
Can
Has she even
No,
thought
and it was a
about this?
miniature donkey anyway.
Maybe she wants it as a pet.
So it's like a large dog. Yeah.
As if it wasn't bad enough getting up this morning, let me tell you what happened too. And look, Wesh, if you're listening, you can send me a response. I know you guys, of course. I got up this morning, turned on the news like normal, laying in bed. It was about 5:55,
It's early.
according to Wesh. According to all the other clocks in my house, it was closer to 6:30. So I thought I had like an extra 30 minutes to kind of chill, lay there, watch the news. The time on the
Got
bottom of the
stuck.
newscast was wrong.
Oh,
So-
wow.
So Pilar looked at her phone and was like, no, we gotta get up. I said, no, we don't. It's not time to get up. Look at the TV. The TV doesn't lie. The TV
TV
lied
did
this morning.
lie.
I was very
I
upset
wonder
about
what
that.
happened there.
I don't know.
A glitch in
So
the timing.
Wow.
I was blaming it on myself. I thought maybe I accidentally hit record or something and it was going like, no, it was just wrong. It was just incorrect. So I don't know.
I think that's ever.
So that's how I started my week today. You don't normally hear about that.
No.
No.
So Wesh, talk to me. What happened this morning? Please.
Get Tony Manolfi on
Yeah,
there.
I had to drink an extra coffee because of you.
Yeah.
321-282-1055. It is Behind the Law. Bud 94.1. Justin Clark. Allie Mack McDolan joining you as we do 8 p.m. every single weeknight on our favorite radio station, Bud 94.1. Don't forget to watch the TV show this Sunday and every Sunday, 10 a.m. on TV 27. Allie Mack special guest today. You know Jordan, right? Jordan's a man about town, great guy. Welcome to the show, Jordan Ostroff. How you doing, brother? Thanks for being here.
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. It'd be better if I was a professional and turned on your mic before I welcome you to the show. But now,
It's
welcome
okay.
again. There he is.
I'll just yell louder. It's fine.
But you told me that you're never afraid to talk, right? Isn't that what you said?
Right.
So tell me a little bit about your practice, by the way. It's an interesting practice because you do some things that you don't normally hear people do. You represent parents and students through school issues, right?
Correct.
Tell me about that.
Well, so we've got 4 attorneys at the firm right now. A lot of the practice is criminal, family, and then some business stuff. But one of the biggest things that's actually an offshoot of the criminal stuff most of the time is dealing with some of these administrative hearings at schools. So that'll be as young as middle school all the way up through UCF and Rollins, where kids will do something that'll cause them to be able to be suspended or expelled from school.
So you try to get them back into school.
Well, or make sure they never leave school to begin with, yeah, depending upon what it is.
Wow.
do you see more and more? Because when I was in school, Mick, you just kind of like call the teacher, the principal, like, look, give Justin a second chance. It's no big deal. Now with all the BS and lawsuits and things going on, it seems like there's a lot more of a process and a structure to actually kicking someone out of school or suspending them or whatever, right? I mean, is it different now?
Definitely. So when I went to UCF, and so when I was there, I remember one of the fraternities built a trebuchet. It was one of the engineering students for their final exam, and they're launching these watermelons across 4 lanes of traffic over at UCF and all the lakes over there.
Damn, that sounds like fun.
Right. And so after like half an hour, somebody comes over, tells them to put the thing away and don't worry about it. And now imagining if they did the same thing, these kids would all get charged with attempted murder, reckless endangerment, destruction of property, all those things. So yes, things have definitely changed over the last decade or more.
So how does that work, generally speaking? If let's say that you have a middle schooler, it seems like all the bad stuff happens in middle school anyway, right? That's an age where kids are really coming of their own, and a lot of bullying really happens at that age. What do you find the process is really like for the
expel someone?
So for us, I think most of what we see is normally going to be 9th grade, getting in high school, and I think it's those kids just out of middle school getting involved with the 16 or 17-year-old kids that causes a lot of that issue.
I gotcha.
The process changes a little bit depending upon the county. Some counties are obviously a lot more interested in actually expelling somebody. Other counties are less interested in that. So in essence, there's notice that's sent to the teacher or to the parents by the school, and then there's going to be a meeting at the school. They'll figure out kind of what they want to do from there, and then you can appeal it up to the school. Well, you appeal it up to the school board, but between that, there's a hearing officer with some of the attorneys for the different public school systems that'll get involved, and then you could eventually end up in front of the school board trying to argue this case.
What are some of the incidents that you're seeing that kids are being suspended for? Can you give us a little bit of, as far as like what you're seeing as not a trend, but...
Sure. A lot of it ends up being alcohol or drugs on campus.
Oh wow!
That's
you can't take booze on campus anymore, Mick.
Not anymore.
When did that
Can't
change?
smoke in the boys' room. You can't do anything.
especially not at 14 or 15.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're also seeing a lot of things that end up being sex acts, whether consensual or not, on campus.
Wow.
At UCF, one of the popular ones that we're seeing now, there's a lot of cheating through some of the different. There's a thing called GroupMe, so it's these chat rooms these kids will create when they have an online class to talk about it. They'll end up sharing answers. Somehow the professors will get a hold of it. And then even
what is that chat room again? No, I'm kidding.
And then even as simple as just messaging an ex after they told you they don't want to have any contact. UCF will go forward on
that is a big
cyber
thing now.
stalking, sexual
Absolutely.
harassment. Those
So
kind of things.
let's talk more about that. If you have a child who's gone through any of these issues with public schools, or even is it private schools too, or is this mostly a public school thing?
It's mostly at public schools. The private schools, if they don't get federal funding, aren't going to have the same protections for due process and whatnot that the public schools will. So something like Rollins or Barry's Law School up here will be a little bit different than.
They'll get you right out of there. See you later.
Well, is that what happens? I mean, so they're quick to put on the trigger.
It depends. If your family's going to buy a new wing for the
There
library,
you go.
then potentially you could stay at
Exactly.
Rollins.
You can stay as long as you want. Do whatever you want.
That would rule me out.
Smoke weed in the
By way.
chapel,
Yeah.
if you will. Hey, we'll be right back with Jordan Ostroff of. How do you reach you? What's the website?
www.jordanlawfl.com.
Plenty more ahead on Behind the Law, Bud 94.1.
Arlene's watching.
Who? Arlene?
Is the battery good?
Nichols.
Okay.
Oh, Ariel.
Arlene.
I'm like, Arlene.
All right, so what do we want to focus on? What area of law do you want to focus on the most? Like, what's your real bread and butter?
Criminal's the big one, but
All
obviously, I mean, the academic hearings are kind of what set us apart. There's only, three or four different.
I mean, that's the most interesting to me, so we'll do criminal in that.
All right.
I think we have plenty of...
My prosecutor stories are better than my defense attorney stories,
bet,
and I can
bet.
share whatever I want because I don't have no confidentiality. So, I got a case that I prosecuted that was great.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear it.
Welcome back to the program. It is Behind the Law on Bud 94.1. Justin Clark here with you. Allie Mack is to my left, and Orlando radio legend Mick Dolan joins us as always, talking to Jordan Ostroff of Jordan Law.
Jordan
You
Law.
went with the first name.
No one's gonna remember.
I know.
Ostroff.
Well, yeah. Who knows? I like that. Jordan Law, we call it.
I like it.
They handle criminal, personal injury, family, and even these academic hearings. Jordan, what do you mean exactly when you say you represent families and children through academic hearings. What does that mean?
So that would be any student we represent as young as middle school, all the way up through UCF and Rollins, and even some students that were going back for a second career when it comes time for them to be either suspended or expelled from school for breaking a code of conduct.
What really happens at this hearing? Where do they really take place? Like, explain the scene to me.
So it depends upon where you're at. So for UCF and Rollins, they've got specific organizations on campus. There's the Office of Student Conduct over at UCF. Everything's going to happen over there. For the schools, a lot of times you're meeting in somebody's office or a conference room at the school, at least for the first step. And then like for Orange County, then it goes over to the main building over on Robinson for us to do a more formal one with a hearing officer. And then obviously with the school board, you're going to wherever the school board's meeting.
Can some of these suspensions be dealt with before going to these hearings?
Like a plea deal.
Can you
Well, so the easiest way to look at it, I think Orange County does it the simplest way. So Orange County has up to 4 different levels of punishments. The only time we're getting involved is a level 4. So that's going to be something that's going to be an expulsion. There's a lot of the level 1s, 2s, and 3s. You don't have the same due process rights that you do on the level 4s because it's a lower punishment that you're going to get.
So 4 different kinds, 4 different categories?
Correct. And so over in, I think, Polk County, I think they have 10 different levels. It's all a different way to classify the punishments.
So what's the lowest? What's the lowest thing you could do to get in trouble?
You know, I have no idea. Nobody's calling me for the they
the
reached
little
over
ones,
and took
yeah.
a classmate's pencil.
Yeah.
It's always the more serious stuff that they're calling us for.
So let's say you go to this hearing and they say, sorry, we're kicking your kid out of school, your client out of school. It doesn't matter. Are there other steps you can take to try to save the day?
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of goes back to the different counties running things a little bit differently. Some schools, they're going to be willing to not expel the student if they transfer to another school, if they agree to go to alternative school, if they agree to go to virtual school. Other counties are going to want to expel everybody for their numbers, but then you can still apply to go back to your regular school after 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, something along those lines.
What do you mean expel them for their numbers?
Well, just so the school can either share that they expelled so few students or so many, so they can be stronger on discipline or not as strong.
So it's like a political thing.
It's at least about liability, if not political.
Oh, wow.
Damn.
You want to name names, or we'll do that on, off the air?
Thankfully, I like almost everybody that I deal with on a consistent basis. So
Okay, so we won't do that. We won't do
Unless you want to.
it. What's,
I see that hesitation
Yeah.
is going, well, wait a minute.
yeah, I'll leave it at that, I guess. So anyway, all right, so when you go to this hearing, really, I know you said it varies depending on where you're at. Is this like a 5-minute thing? They say what they got to say, you say it back, or is this sort of you get an hour or two? I mean, I guess compare it to almost like a trial, if you
yeah.
would.
I mean, I think the closest thing that we do as lawyers that's comparable, it's sort of like an injunction.
Okay.
It's not going to be as formal as a trial, and it's a lot more Jerry Springer like an injunction would be.
Right.
So you're figuring about an hour for these at the high schools and middle schools with the disciplinary team meeting. There's an area supervisor. There's the principal. There's the dean who investigated it. Over at UCF, you might have somebody from their Title IX office as well as the professor or another student giving some sort of information, and then the student gets a chance to give their side of it.
So the student is there.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's a good learning experience for them, I guess.
A lot of them talk to me afterwards about wanting to go be lawyers now.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, really? Well, that's good.
Don't do it.
Right, that's the same pitch I make.
Business
Don't worry.
school. Get your MBA, please. Right? I'm just kidding. Justin Clark here with you on Behind the Law, talking to Jordan Ostroff. Jordan Law website is
www.jordanlawfl.com.
all right. So you also handle criminal defense in addition to these academic hearings. What's your background criminal-wise? Not how many criminal acts have you committed.
The statute of limitations has run on all of my criminal
Okay, so go
criminal
ahead. Go ahead.
Before opening up the firm, I was a prosecutor in Orange County for the Ninth Circuit, and so I prosecuted everything from low-level misdemeanors all the way up to cases where people would go to prison for the rest of their lives if they were convicted.
Eesh.
Yeah, I ran the gamut of it.
When you're a prosecutor, how many files do they normally like each prosecutor to have on their desk at one time?
Well, they like you to have as few as possible,
Yeah.
but it depends. If the higher up you go, the longer you're there, the more serious the case is, the fewer files you have.
Gotcha. So, people think of prosecutors as maybe handling the same case from the very beginning to end, but don't they kind of break it up to where you have one prosecutor that's just handling certain phases of the case, or is it you handle the whole thing the whole time?
So right now in Central Florida, you either have an intake prosecutor who then gives it to a trial prosecutor, and so the intake prosecutor, they're going to make a charging decision. What do they want to charge the person with, or do they want to charge them with nothing? And then you'll have a trial prosecutor who will take the case from there. Obviously, there's a ton of turnover at all the offices, so your trial prosecutor, you may have 2 or 3 different trial prosecutors over the 6 months, 9 months, a year that the case goes on for.
When you handle a personal injury case, the first thing you do is you send a demand letter to the insurance company, right, Mick? You know what I mean? You've seen how this works before. So you send a demand, say, I want $100,000, and then an insurance adjuster is assigned to it, and the adjuster will come to you and say, look, I've only got $25,000 on this case. That's my authority. If I need to get more than 25, I got to go to my bosses. When you're a prosecutor, obviously defense attorneys are coming to you saying, look, can you just give my guy probation? And then you, as the prosecutor, I guess, have to make some decisions. But how much leeway do they really give you to decide what sort of deals you can cut with the defense?
So that depends upon the office. When I was there, I was one of the last hires by Lawson Lamar into Jeff Ashton's time, and we had a lot more discretion to do, what we thought was right. That was kind of that was the motto that we were given, right. Is, charge what you can prove at trial and then do what you think is right on the case. There are some other prosecutors' offices where they have a very rigid structure where it's, hey, first time petty theft, this is the offer every time. Second time petty theft, it's this. There's even some of the smaller counties where the state attorney or their chief assistant will go over the offers on every single case.
Are there counties where they're easier on crimes?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Are there better counties to commit a crime?
Where's the best county to do the bad deed? Where is it?
That's a good question. I mean, I think in terms of, the larger the county, the more they're going to deal on a lot of the cases. The smaller the county, the fewer cases, the more serious they're going to take it. But then you also have to kind of play the flip side of that. You commit a crime in Orange County, you're going to have the Orange County Sheriff's Office, OPD, a couple different agencies. They've got access to more helicopters and other vehicles to track you down. So you may be better off doing it in a smaller county because you can get away with it better. As
Not
opposed
that we're
to
advocating.
No, of
anybody
course
to
not.
Right.
Not
that.
I don't even speed, really, honestly.
I
but-
was just asking for my listeners.
Yeah. It's just
For a
the
friend.
for the Bud 94.1 audience.
Gotcha.
We need to know.
Exactly.
for Bud 94.1, probably Orange County then.
There you go.
Okay. Good.
So, look, I have a lot of friends who are public defenders. They try really hard. They have a lot of cases, and it's a tough job being a public defender. When you're a prosecutor, do you treat cases differently, or do you look at them differently, whether they have a private, lawyer you've heard of before versus the public defender?
You're definitely not supposed to.
Right.
I mean, the thing so my wife was a public defender when I was a prosecutor, so we actually met in court on opposite sides. So I definitely,
I bet that guy got a good deal.
Whoa.
well, thankfully
Really?
we never actually had a case against
Okay,
each other
good.
directly. So I think, for me, I always went into it with the mindset of like a normal human being and not some flaming sort of justice who never
Right.
committed a crime in my life. The difference, I think the benefit that public defenders get is you're in the same courtroom with the same prosecutors all the time. So if you have, it's easier to build a rapport with public defenders, and if they were the ones who were reasonable, we'd get done, whatever we could get done. Whereas with
Right.
a private attorney, you may only have 1 or 2 cases with them.
So it really shouldn't matter one way or another, I guess.
From the prosecutor standpoint, no. I mean,
Okay.
the benefit of hiring a private attorney now is we're going to cap ourselves at about 30 cases per attorney. As a public defender, you may have up to 130 cases, 150 cases
Wow.
right then and there. So
are public defenders really able to really give every client as much attention as they should? I mean, are they able to? I mean, they're throwing so many cases at them. How do they do it? How do they
depends
do
upon
it?
the person.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got some really great public defenders, and you've got some other ones who aren't as interested. The biggest issue as a defendant is you don't get to pick which one. You may have the best public defender in the office, and then they get promoted to the next spot. You can't pick who you have.
Have you ever left the courtroom when you were a prosecutor and the defendant, who wasn't handcuffed or anything, they were just there, showing up at their hearing? Have you ever left the courtroom after even maybe a contentious hearing and ridden the elevator together?
Oh, yeah. Or the Lynx bus downtown?
No.
Oh, yeah, all the time. We would go to lunch with all of the defendants that we had just gone
Really?
through arraignments on. Yeah.
What? How was that? How did that feel?
Yeah, really.
I always thought that it would be a problem,
Yeah.
but if the way that I look at it, and you'll see this through all like the competency cases, so the people that are getting evaluated to see whether or not they're sufficient to stand trial, they're always like, "Oh, the state attorney, I get it. He's doing his job. It's my attorney who's throwing me down the selling me up the river."
Oh, wow.
So I don't know. There's always like that begrudging respect. I don't know.
Jordan Ostroff of Jordan Law handles your criminal case. Tell me a little bit about what separates you guys as a criminal defense attorney, a criminal defense firm, versus some of the other guys.
The biggest thing for us is we are able to keep our caseload lower. So we're only going to have about 30 cases per attorney at any given time, and we are able to do that because we've got 4 attorneys, and so everybody's going to cover basically one county. I've got an attorney who lives in Osceola, does all the Osceola stuff, some in Orange, some in Seminole, and we really try and focus our practice on those counties. So that way we're not, I'm not having a client pay me for me to be driving 4 hours out for a 25-minute hearing or having to pay for coverage.
And what's the craziest case you've ever had? Any one case just stand out? And you don't have to name names, of course, but give us a little bit.
I got it.
Yeah, I've got one. So obviously it's easier to talk about the ones as a prosecutor. There's no duty of confidentiality. So I prosecuted this case. This guy gets addicted to oxy pills. So he's up in Seminole County, breaks into a pharmacy to rob them of their oxy, goes to start his car to leave, and his car won't start. So he walks across the street to a gas station, and he carjacks this lady. And even she said, like, the nicest carjacker she'd ever seen. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I hate to do this to you, but the police are on their way. I need your car."
Go.
Yeah.
So I don't have that part of it. I have the next part. He's driving down through I-4 to get back to, like, Polk County or something. He's shooting at the police out the window of his car. He's driving with his knee. He's popping the oxy pills as he's driving down with the spike strips and 50 cop cars chasing him down through I-4. And so he ends up charged with, he's got the carjacking and the armed burglary up in Seminole. Then he's got attempted second-degree murder on like 6 different Leos here and all of those things. So the cops finally get him. They stop him. He doesn't kill anybody. He is so blitzed out of his mind from the oxy. They take him immediately to the hospital, and they can't interview the guy for like 48 hours because he had just done so many drugs with the OD. And so finally, like, whatever
and
it
lived
was.
to tell about
Yeah.
it.
Oh, live to tell about it, yeah.
Lived to tell about
So finally, 3 or 4 days later, the detective goes over, interviews him, and the detective, again, nicest guy. If he wasn't addicted to drugs, he'd
Right.
never be a problem, this whole thing. And meanwhile, like, I'm playing a video that looks like Grand Theft Auto for a jury of this chase through.
Wow.
What was
down
the
I-4.
what
So
was the
happened
what was the
to him?
result?
Well, so he ended up getting sentenced to 2 counts of life in prison in Seminole for those, and then he got whatever like the maximum sentence was down here on top of
My God.
Yeah.
all that
Wow.
stuff. So
Wow.
You almost feel bad in a way, but then you get it too. I mean, you're shooting at police officers. You can't do that.
and thank God he didn't hit anybody. Thank God he didn't hit a
kill
a random
anybody,
person
yeah.
driving down
Nobody
I-4.
got hurt.
Yeah.
Minimum amount of damage. I'm sure the car
But he's
was
the
shot.
nicest guy.
Flat out, she was like, "He's the nicest carjacker ever," and I was like, "I mean, I
Well,
hope
wait a
so.
minute.
I don't-
How would
I hope-
she know? Has she been jacked before? Is the question.
I don't know.
Well, we
Didn't
have
ask.
30 full minutes ahead of Behind the Law. On the other side of this break, we're going to bring in Michael Lawrence from Seminole County Public Schools to ask him a little bit about what happened over at Lake Brantley. Let's get their official statement. We're going to be nice to him. He's a good friend of mine, by the way. I mean, I love the guy to death, but I would like to hear from Seminole County because it's a story we've talked about many times on this show, and it's been talked about locally a lot here recently. We're also going to talk more to Jordan Ostroff of Jordan Law in regards to criminal defense, crazy cases he's had in other areas of law he could help you with. That's all right after these short words. It's Behind the Law, Bud 94.1.
Okay, we have to move another guy in, right?
Yeah.
Scooting.
So you might be sharing a mic with him, I guess? Let me just turn the mic.
Go ahead, Mike.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
1 2 1 2. Got it.
That's how you do it.
No sound.
Mike's on mute right now.
All right, you ready? Brianna, we good?
Yeah.
You don't need batteries, right?
No.
Okay. And welcome back to the show. It's Behind the Law, right here on Bud 94.1. Justin Clark joins you as we do every single weeknight at 8 p.m. on our favorite radio station. To my left, my good friend and co-host, Allie Mack. What's up, Allie Mack? How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
And directly to her left, sharing the table, you know him. He's the face of Bud 94.1 and Orlando radio legend, Mick Dolan. Mick, what's up, man?
Well, I love this pink mic.
Hey, you look good in pink, man. Coming off the Old St. Mick cruise, the first annual. How'd it go?
I did. I did not fall in the drink.
You made a couple of bucks, too?
A couple of bucks.
How many beers do you think you had, if you had to guess?
I don't have enough hands to count.
I just like the honesty. That's
Sorry.
it. I really do like the.
You're a
That's
lawyer.
really how you beat the house.
Exactly. We also have Jordan Ostroff of Jordan Law joining us today. Thanks for being here, Jordan. We have a lot more questions for you ahead, too. If you have any questions, by the way, the phone number, 321-282-1055. Don't forget to tune into the television program. It's Behind the Law on TV this Sunday and every Sunday, 10 a.m., TV 27. And you can always join us about 4 o'clock during the week on at Behind the Law Radio, Facebook, Instagram, and interact with us right there. The beautiful Brianna is here. She will ask any question that you have, and we'll address them here on the air. Joined by a good friend now, haven't seen in a while, Michael Lawrence. He's the communications officer with Seminole County Public Schools. Welcome, Mike. Good to see you, brother. It's
to
been
see
so
you,
long.
Justin.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry it took such an event to bring us together like this. I mean,
No worries. I'm looking forward to it.
I've thought many times about you, and that we'll get together again outside of here soon. How is that?
It sounds good.
But we've been talking on this show, and obviously the local media's caught on to this a lot. It was the Code Red drill over at Lake Brantley. It was the active shooter drill.
Sure.
And I think the big question that has come up is, did we know about it or did we not know about it? I mean, I think that's the main question. And was that the intention? Talk to me.
Absolutely. So I don't know how many of you all here have kids in Seminole County schools, but we've been doing Code Red drills for about 5 years with the announced and unannounced. So they're twofold. So the announced drills, everybody knows about them. It's just like your typical fire drill. Everybody knows they're going to happen. We tell them about them in advance, and kind of just it's a training exercise to teach students, faculty, and staff of what to do in those scenarios. But in addition to that, we also do unannounced drills, and the unannounced drills are to kind of see are they following those directions. It gives us an opportunity to kind of test the administration, test the kids, the teachers, make sure they're locking the doors like we teach them to. They're hiding in the hard corners. They're turning the lights off. And basically, we have undercover law enforcement that does those. And what they're doing is they'll walk on campus. Maybe they'll go through the front office and everyone's supposed to sign in and do all that. Maybe they'll ignore those commands. And that will initiate a lockdown because as we've instructed our faculty, our administration, our staff, and everyone there that if that happens, you don't know until that person's identified, you're going down a lockdown mode. So they'll treat it as if it's the real deal. Same difference if they come wandering onto campus, maybe in an open gate or whatever. They want to see if they're going to get stopped and who's going to stop them and at what point. And they can initiate a lockdown from that standpoint. We have a app on our phones that all staff can have. It's a soft panic button app. And staff can actually initiate that. So if they see a stranger that just doesn't belong, they can, ask them what are they doing there. And then from there, if they get ignored or they just keep going, they can initiate that lockdown. So that way we can do that from anywhere, anytime. So the custodian can do that. The PE teacher can do that. Because you're looking at when you talk about a high school, they're large campuses, so just like at lunch, if a fight broke out, you can hit that if you need assistance, because you could be in the courtyard, you could be on the football field, you can be anywhere on that massive campus, and you need to initiate that code red situation lockdown, and it could happen from anywhere at any time, and not every employee carries a radio. Administrators carry a radio, custodians and things like that, but not everyone. So this gives everyone the ability to initiate that lockdown. So in the incident with Lake Brantley, we do these unannounced drills. Now, they're planned with law enforcement. So law enforcement knows that they're going to occur, but not necessarily all the administrative team. In a typical scenario, usually it's the principal, the SRO on that campus, the district personnel, and then the law enforcement agencies are usually in the loop when they do those unannounced drills. And the key, and what failed at this one, is the key is that when they end or as they're wrapping up, the school will send out a message. Now, with the unannounced drills, the message is already pre-programmed, ready to go, and as soon as it starts, they send that out because everybody knows it's happening. And the unannounced drills, usually the administrator or the principal knows it's going to happen, so they have it ready to go. So as the drill is winding down, they send that out. That way the parents know that we've just completed a drill. If their kids have social media, we deal with this at middle school and high school ages. Everyone has cell phones.
Right.
They're on Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, all that good stuff. And so they're instantly going to be texting their parents, letting them know what's going on, and we know that. And so we have a couple things that can combat that. First off, getting that message out quickly. In the case of Lake Brantley, their message, they thought they had administrators that thought they sent out the message. It did not go out. And the reason we knew it didn't go out is once you start getting news calls from the news desk, with panicked parents, clearly a message did not go out because we knew that it was just a drill. And so one of the things that we did is, from the district side, sent out a message to families, letting them know that, yes, this was just a drill, letting the news stations obviously know that it's just a drill, putting it up on social media and whatnot. But the problem then is that now it's about an hour after the drill started, probably a good 30 minutes, because usually these drills are 20, 30 minutes long, probably a good half hour after we would normally send out a message, that ideally that we train our schools to do. And so that was definitely the number one breakdown with the first initial part of the day. And then there was a secondary scenario, a separate incident that kind of contributed as well. But the first part, if we get that message out right away, problem avoided. And all our schools are trained to do this. The school actually thought they had done it. It didn't happen. We sent it out for them. But again, too late at that point. So definitely that's an easy fix for us on our end, easy fix on the school end. There's a couple contingencies we have in place. And the reason we have that, so you have to understand, in this particular instance was a little bit of special circumstances. The principal was away at a principal meeting, was not informed in the loop as we normally do with the unannounced drill. And that was intentional. Similar to the Parkland incident, the principal was way off of campus. And so you have to have contingencies put in place because these real-world situations aren't going to happen on our timeline. They're not going to happen when we're planned for them, when we're ready. They're going to happen on their own timetable. And so we train our folks to have multiple people who are capable of, obviously your administrative team, to handle whether they have to do call-outs, emails, things of that nature, and they're trained on the system. So 3 or 4 people. It's like if you go down at third base and we need to plug in another third base hitter, or a DH, or and things like that. So you just put in next man up, and so to speak. And so, but they have to be ready to go. And so we've trained them to do that. And so that was to test the administration team while the principal was away to see if they knew how to handle that scenario. And so that was part of it. And then, so critical mistake number 1, not getting that message out. That's an easy fix. And the Sheriff Lima put out a release the following week saying, from now on, we're tweaking the way we do those unannounced drills. What we're going to do from now on is that, one, administrator is always going to know what's going on with that drill, and not only that hasn't always been the case, but now that's been implemented. 2, that message will go out right at the beginning of the unannounced drill, right from the get-go. So before they even do the drill, that message is to go out and confirm that it went out, and then they will conduct their drill. So that's number 1. Secondary incident was an incident where the administration team at Lake Brantley put out a message during lunch, basically thanking the kids for how they did in the Code Red drill earlier in the day, which caused a problem and some mass panic going on during that first lunch period because the kids keyed in on the word Code Red. They have construction going on in Lake Brantley. They're putting up a new Building 5. They're redoing the auditorium. They're redoing the lunchroom. So a lot of nail guns, a lot of power tools going on. And so all the kids are keying in on is those words Code Red. That's all they could hear. I mean, lunch is loud enough as it is. Add to that we had a news helicopter flying over the courtyard covering the earlier part of us not getting the message out quickly. Kids think it's a sheriff's helicopter. They know that we don't do 2 Code Red drills in the same day. We only do 1. We already had a drill earlier in the day. So you can understand the mass panic, as well as on social media with our Panic Button app. When they do that scenario, they hit that. That's where you saw on social media that active shooter between buildings. I don't know if it was 2 and 4 or whatnot. Yep. So that's what was going on social media. So teachers either had showed that to them because that's something only staff should see, but kids got a hold of that and put it on Snapchat, social media, and they're sharing that during lunch as well. So you can kind of see there's some circumstances that kind of contributed to that. 2 separate incidents, but both learning lessons, obviously. They've never happened before. They weren't scenarios that we've had in any of the 5 years that we have. So a little bit of perfect storm in some circumstances, but easily correctable type things that we can tweak, and we have tweaked. And working with our law enforcement partners, getting more of those folks on board. They released the 911 calls today. So issues with even their folks knowing what they should already know that there was a drill going on. Making sure
Who's supposed to tell them?
So we work directly. So we're a little bit unique than other school districts. About 2 years ago, well before Parkland and other incidents, we had an opportunity, basically with the retirement of our school safety and security director, who just retired, and we worked with then Sheriff Esslinger to say, hey, how about we bring in, you guys are the experts in school safety and all things law enforcement. Let's bring in one of your captains as our school safety and security director. So we actually have as our school safety and security director a captain of the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. His name is Captain Rick Francis, who is in charge of all our school safety. And then the sheriff added a lieutenant as for our day-to-day operations that's in our building that works with all our SROs, because you got to understand, we just don't have just the county, but we also have the municipalities that are on site who are handling SRO or SRD duties at some of our schools within the county. So we want to get everyone on the same page. We want to get flow of information quickly, because getting the right information as fast as possible and disseminating it can save you in instances like this. So that's what we've done. And so they coordinate that with their law enforcement partners. So like even with the Lake Brantley incident, they have a meeting before they do the drill with, in this instance, Altamont PD would be involved, some of their officers. But where we can make corrections is a larger pool of folks being all on the same page. We have district officials that sometimes get notifications and knowing that that's going on. So kind of opening that up, opening up some of the staff at the various agencies so that they're on board and know a little bit early on what's going on. Really more just a larger pool of folks with knowledge of those things occurring. That could save us a lot of time on that end. And really the biggest thing, getting that message out right on the onset of it will really save a lot of time. And then there's tweaks to how they do those unannounced drills as well. Obviously, our goal is not to traumatize kids. Our goal is absolutely to train them. We do need to train because, unfortunately, that's the world we live in today. I never had to do an active shooter drill when I was a kid.
Nope.
Right, I don't think any of us did. Our thing was maybe a hurricane drill, maybe a fire drill, maybe a tornado drill, and things of that nature. Well, unfortunately, our kids today have the real possibility of having to deal with these real-world incidents. So now we have to walk that fine line, that little gray area of we want to train them, but we don't want to scare them. But there are some things, and we work with our student leadership councils of all our schools, and these are students, and they come to us, and we meet with them on a regular basis all year round, and we ask them, well, what is it? How can we get to everybody? What are the steps? What do you want to know? What do you think you know? That are you prepared if this scenario would occur? And there's a lot of things that we do and push out to families and educate them on and train them, and not just teachers, but the students as well and our families. But there's always more, right? And from them, they say, well, we don't take the announced drills as seriously. No different than the fire drill.
Sure.
I got to admit, when I was a kid, I probably didn't take the fire drills that I knew were happening very seriously either. So I understand that point. So they want to see us do more of those unannounced because they pay more attention to them. Mm-hmm. But as a district, and even with our law enforcement partners, there's a fine line that you have to walk to not cause trauma and to not scare kids, not cause a panic. And so there's things that we can put in place and things that we can tweak. And these things are going to evolve. What we learned, post Parkland, and every time we have an incident, kind of educate, legislature and even school districts on mandates and best practices that we can put in place. And those are going to evolve, and they're going to continue to evolve over the years as we learn more. And so one of these, the situation with Lake Brantley is not the way we want to see it happen. There's lots of things that didn't go as planned and that we can easily fix, but at the same time it does offer some learning lessons, and that's also another reason we do these types of drills, to learn from them, so that we rather make these mistakes and learn from these mistakes now than when you have a situation like a Parkland where you do a post-mortem afterwards and you see the various failures or the things that maybe we could have done this, maybe we could have done that. We're all second guessing, playing Monday morning quarterback, where now we can be a little bit more prepared for those and learn from those now rather than later.
Let's take a quick time out, and we have some more questions ahead for Michael Lawrence, Seminole County Public Schools, about the recent unannounced Code Red drill at Lake Brantley. Don't move an inch. More right ahead on Behind the Law.
Well, I want to talk about what's being done in the aftermath for the kids, as far as like if you are offering any kind of counseling, because there is trauma and panic that
absolutely.
now the kids are now they're dealing with that.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to the show. It's Behind the Law right here on Bud 94.1. My name is Justin Clark, joined by two very, very special guests today. Jordan Ostroff of Jordan Law is here. We'll get back to you, I promise, buddy, in just a second,
No
too. We
problem.
also have Michael Lawrence, Seminole County Public Schools, the communications officer over there. Because, Michael, not like many shows probably over the last week or two, we've talked many times on this program about the recent unannounced Code Red drill. Let me ask you a couple of questions first.
Sure.
Does Code Red mean active shooter?
No.
Okay.
Code Red could be anything. Now, we live in Seminole County, and especially in the Altamont-Wekiva area, what happens sometimes at night? You have bears. So bears are a real thing for us in Seminole County, and sometimes we've initiated Code Red lockdowns because of bears wandering on campus or nearby campus. Code Red simply means an imminent threat or a current threat. It does not necessarily mean an active shooter situation. So a Code Red lockdown, while we'll train kids to shelter in place, to make sure all the doors are locked, to turn off the lights and things of that nature, no traffic in and out of, on campus, and some other things. That's a Code Red. A Code Yellow, and we only have two codes to make it less confusing. We have Code Yellow and Code Red. Code Yellow, our schools are basically always on a kind of Code Yellow in terms of our doors are always locked, or they should be, right? And so we do constant training on that, and we evaluate our campuses. We do surprise visits and just kind of test that out. So, but a Code Yellow usually is for law enforcement activity in an area. And so that could be, maybe there's a burglary down the road, maybe there's a carjacking type thing going on in the area, something law enforcement activity in the area. They'll go on a Code Yellow, meaning kids are learning, they're doing their instruction as normal in their classroom. Activities are not disrupted. The only difference being they're not turning off their lights, they're not hiding in place. Traffic is halted from that area, but really we don't want any folks that law enforcement might be chasing to maybe wander on a campus. We just want them to be alert and prepared for that.
So what
that's the
made
difference.
this event a Code Red active shooter? What was the difference here? How did we know this was an active shooter event?
Sure. So I don't believe that the scenario that law enforcement was doing that day was actually the example scenario of what they were doing in terms of their Code Red, unannounced Code Red. I believe the active shooter was initiated basically by, again, as I explained earlier, sometimes we have law enforcement that goes on campus, they're undercover, and they want to get stopped. And we have this app, and anyone can touch the app. So if they see a stranger, it could be any teacher, it could be any administrator on campus sees some stranger walking by and they say, hey, can I help you? And they're ignoring them, or are you looking for something? As we train them, as we teach them to do, and they're being ignored, they can hit that active panic button alert. And then that goes to everybody on campus to let them know what's going on.
So one person hit the panic button this time after the Code Red was initiated, but it wasn't a Code Red for active shooter. It was just a Code Red.
Correct.
And then someone on campus, an administrator, a teacher, someone hit the panic button.
Right. And so...
Did they explain why? I mean, you must know who did it. You don't have to tell us who did it, but did they tell us why they did that?
So I can show you kind of a sample of what that is. So you notice this is what they have. So this is what they have. It has active shooter, fire, medical, police, other. And it's really cool. You hit it. You got to hold it down for a couple seconds, but it'll immediately contact all the administrators, the SRO on campus, the 911 center, law enforcement, our district officials instantly for any event, okay? Now, when they hit that, and again, they have to hold it down for a bit, obviously you see that the largest button's active shooter, okay? So we're still training. This has only been, I believe, our second school year with this, and it's not mandatory for every employee to have this. We can't force them to put it on their own phones, right? So we encourage them to, and we think that they understand why they should, but we can't force them to do that. We don't pay for their cell phone bills and things like that. But the majority of staff on a campus has it.
Do we think it was a pocket dial?
No, definitely not a pocket dial. We trained them to do that. So that part would work correctly. If they see a stranger, we want them to have the ability to do that.
Okay.
Now, at some point, that person, which is basically undercover law enforcement, will show identification and their badge and let them know, yes, this is a drill. From that point, the drill changes. The drill is no longer, did you initiate the lockdown because you saw a stranger, which we're testing you to do. You did the right thing. Now they're going and testing all the locked doors, were any gates open, or all the classrooms doing what they've trained to do, kids hiding in place with the lights off, and they're grading them, they're assessing them. Then they always do a debriefing afterwards of evaluating how they did, what worked, what didn't work, so that they can improve upon that in their safety plan. So more than likely, that's how that occurred. Not necessarily that it was an active shooter, because that was not the scenario that we were training on. But we're working with this company to customize the interface, the user face, that a person has for the app, because we don't want the active shooter button to obviously be the largest button there, because that's going to be the easiest and the first thing that they're going to push. So we're trying to get that customizable. So we're in the process of doing that. That's, again, a lesson learned. In this case, that app almost didn't do us any favors in this particular incident, but it's also showing us training. It shows us training that staff has to be more educated on the app, so the further training involved there. Also, they shouldn't be showing that to students. The messages that we get is strictly for us as staff. What we see, our staff knows that we do these drills. We train for them. We teach that. So at any point, you do not want to have teachers who are panicked or concerned and showing kids these, and it definitely shouldn't get to students. Then
So
for them to spread around.
somehow, an administrator, or a teacher showed a student, or somehow a student saw it, and then they posted it, and that's kind of what contributed to the hysteria as well. Let me ask you this, I guess, just straight up in a way. We don't even have to talk about Seminole County. Talk about any school system in America. We're talking about this gray area between we want to prepare well, but we don't want to scare the hell out of everybody either.
Right.
Do you think that school systems nationwide should do unannounced active shooter drills?
Based off what we learned and what we've seen from previous incidents and what we learned from our safety councils and conferences that our folks go to, the national trend is that, yes, we need to do the unannounced drills, because that's the really only true way to, one, see the breakdowns of what we need to improve upon, what worked, but also how to handle those various scenarios. I will tell you that we've even practiced them during a lunch, legitimately, at Haggerty High School in Oviedo. We've done that 2 times there to see a lunchroom type environment, because unfortunately we have to prepare for that. Anywhere there's a lot of people in a confined area, you have to prepare for that. And so when we do those, we have extra administrators and extra law enforcement, to kind of make that an orderly exercise. But we also want to see the outcome of that. What occurred? What happens when you have that scenario? So that way we can prepare for that. So maybe we videotape that, we share that with other schools, we learn from it. Because that could be a scenario that we might deal with. You always have, these plans. Emergency management does it all the time when you do those practice, hurricane, drills and things like that. All these different scenarios. We hope we never have to do them, but they're training exercises and we learn from them. Can I say we shouldn't do unannounced drills? That's not my call. I don't want to get in that area but I will say that the information that we receive shows that we do need to do them, but there's lots of tweaks. There's no magic bullet, so to speak, of to say what the best scenario of how to do those are. I think that's a process that's going to continue to evolve as a result of things like what we saw. They're going to learn from that, and maybe there's going to be things that they don't do or scenarios that they can do better, so that doesn't cause the issue that we saw at Brantley.
And what is the school system doing for the kids, the panic and everything that they've caused? Are they offering them any type of counseling or anything like that?
Yeah, so mental health is a big thing. So as you know, post-Parkland, there was state statutes involved with mental health funding. We've added a lot of counseling, a lot of things like that. I will tell you that every school has a counselor, obviously, just like when we were kids. So they can always go to their counselors at any time and speak to them, and they're available for them to do that. It's no different than when we have a crisis. A lot of times we'll send a crisis team to a school. In the event, maybe over the holiday break, we've had this happen before where a student maybe got in a car accident and some serious injuries or worse. We've had those situations. They go on every school year at a variety of our schools. And when that happens, we send a crisis response team to that school, in addition with the counselors the school already has. and they'll stay for as long as
So
necessary.
is that what's in place right now?
Well, I don't know if it's in place right now. I'd have to find out. I don't know if that's already there, but it's available to them. So a lot of times the school can ask for that if they feel they need it. So basically, if they have counselors at that school, so anyone can go to their counselors. But if they feel they need extra support, extra help, the district will send that crisis response team there. But really, that would be a call if there's enough folks that feel they need that, and the school would reach out to our ESSS department and exceptional student support staff services. They would send that crisis response team there. So the administration team would just need to ask for it. The district would send that.
It's probably been a couple of kind of rough weeks over there for you guys. How have the parents of Lake Brantley students reacted?
I think obviously at first, obviously very upset, and we can understand that totally. I'm a parent myself, so I would understand that if I didn't get a message right away and my kid was texting me or whatnot in a panic. That's not what we want to have happen, and that's not how it should happen. So I believe that the district and even these schools, and even Lake Brantley specifically, can easily fix that part of it. The other part of it goes to the traumatization. Obviously, we don't want that. So working with law enforcement, the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, our municipality agencies, to learn from the incident from Lake Brantley and see how they can maybe tweak some of the things that they do and how they do it to maybe mitigate, some of those issues that we experienced on Thursday at Lake Brantley. So I think there's a lot of learning, obviously, that took place. A lot of things that we can definitely say publicly didn't work the way we want them to work or how they should work, but definitely easy fixes. A lot of these are simple things that procedural wise that we can train our folks to do so that they don't happen again. The biggest thing is that communication to parents quickly. That we live in a new world where everyone has a phone and social media that didn't exist when I was in school. So you wouldn't hear about something until at night when you went home to mom and dad and you told them about it. Hey, this is what happened at school. That doesn't happen now. We're in real time. It's instant. So as school districts and even law enforcement, we have to adapt to that and make sure that we get out information as quickly as possible. And that's the key. We don't want the parents to see something when they see it on the news because the helicopter's flying over a school. It's too late by then. We want to get the information out. Now, I will say that when we get in those scenarios, we have to make sure the information is accurate, before we push it out. But we work with law enforcement, and that's part of having that captain, with the Seminole County Sheriff. We get that intel instantly, and so we're able to push that out. Now, what I will say, and I want to remind all our families that have kids in our county, is that information getting out is only as good as the information that you put into it. So we have this system called Skyward where, mom and dad puts in their address, their phone numbers, and their emails. Well, that's what drives our system to alert them in these types of situations. So we want to make sure that they have correct phone numbers. If you're going to be at work during the day and you're worried about a scenario that happens during the day while your kid's at school and something happens, then make sure you put your cell phone number in there. Your home phone's not going to do you any good if you're at work. So put your work number, put your cell phone number. Make sure we have accurate email addresses. And I will tell families that in a real emergency, in a real incident, that message will never come from the school. It'll always come from us at the district office instantly. That's our contingency, because if there is a real incident at a school, they need to deal with that situation, whether it's a lockdown, whatever it may be. They're not going to be sending that message. The district will send out that message. Only in non-emergencies do we want our schools pushing out that message and their other communications that they do all week long. But in a real-world emergency, the district will send that out because we can do it in real time, super fast, and then we'll also alert news media. We'll put it on our website. We'll put it on our social media. We'll get the word out every way possible that we can, because you have to understand as families, I don't know who has a good email address or a phone number in our system. I don't know who follows Facebook or who follows us on Twitter, who just goes to our website. We're going to put it everywhere. Every place that we have to put it, we will put it. And that's what we would do in a true emergency situation. And so I want parents to know that, but also make sure your information is up to date, because that's going to be critical if ever we were having to alert them.
Michael Lawrence, Communications Officer of the Seminole County Public Schools. Thanks for joining us, buddy. Good to see you, first of all. We'll get together soon. I really appreciate you coming in and helping us understand a little bit better what happened over at Lake Brantley during the Code Red drill. If you have any questions, reach out to Seminole County. If you're a parent of a student at Lake Brantley who's going through a tough time, reach out. I'm sure that the school and the school system are there to support you. Thanks for joining us, buddy. It's Behind the Law on Bud 94.1.
Is that 3?
Good deal. Yeah, we're gonna do another segment.
Oh.
Thanks for coming in, man.
You got it.
We gotta get together someday.
Oh, absolutely.
That was a real long one.
Good to see you, brother. Thanks for coming in. If I can ever help, let me know.
Oh, absolutely.
Take care.
I was playing double dutch.
We're gonna do another segment now. I'll run it tomorrow.
So that was,
It was very thorough.
Yeah, we're gonna do another segment now with just Jordan, and then we'll piece it back together.
All right.
If you guys are good with that, of course.
Wow.
I wanted to ask him if the school flunked the code red.
Right? He's like,
That is a
All right, so
possibility.
one more segment. Let's do this.
Welcome back to the show. One final segment ahead of Behind the Law. Bud 94.1, joined by our good friend and Orlando attorney, Jordan Ostroff. Jordan, thanks for being here. How are you today?
doing very well. How
One
about
more
you?
time. Look, I know you handle criminal, family, a little PI?
No.
No
We do,
PI.
some business.
Okay,
litigation stuff.
criminal, family, business, and academic hearing type things, right?
Right.
And if I have any questions about any of those, what's your phone number, website, so I can reach out?
Sure. Our phone number is 407-906-5529. And our website is www.jordanlawfl.com.
Gotcha. Talk to me about family law a little bit, because I think that a lot of people in this community are like, you know what, I don't want to get divorced, or I'm going to try to do it myself without hiring a lawyer. I mean, what is the divorce process really like here in this community? Can it take years and years, or is it kind of a quick process?
So, the grade A lawyer answer for everything is it depends, right, Justin?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, at a divorce, you're going to have to figure out what's happening with the child, if there's a child in there as they move forward, and what happens with all of the finances, the assets, and liabilities. So if you've got two people, they've been together for a long time, they've got a lot of stuff, they've got multiple kids, that's going to take a lot more time and a lot more money than if it's just a situation where it's, two kids who got married young, they haven't been together that long, there's no children, all they have is a little bit of credit card debt, they don't own a house. Those are a lot easier to get done faster.
Yeah. Do you see a lot of people come in and say, look, my husband and I, we're getting divorced, but we're very friendly. Can we just do it really inexpensively and do it uncontested, but then it turns into contested? You know what I mean?
I think you described every single divorce case. It sounds all well and good until ink hits the paper.
Right.
And then suddenly the things that people fight over, it's crazy.
Let's say that I'm a father and I am going through a divorce and I've got 3 kids at home and I'm scared to death about how much child support I'm going to pay. Is there like a standard amount that you pay in Florida? Is it just whatever the judge thinks? How does child support work here in Florida?
So in the state of Florida, we have child support guidelines. So what they do is they figure out, based upon the total income of both parties, what is expected to be spent on the kids. Then you multiply that by who's making what for that and who has the kids for what period of time, to kind of figure out a range of child support options. And then a judge can always go higher or lower than that depending upon other factors.
From what I've seen more and more, it's when it comes to who gets the kids, it's not always now the mom. Now it can be the dad and the mom. Have you seen also that trend where now there's more dads that are getting custody of the kids?
Absolutely. So what Florida looks for is continuing and ongoing contact with both parents. So in a situation where there's no allegations of drug use by one parent or violence or something along those lines, the court system wants to get either as close to 50-50 as possible, or at least try to have that continuing and ongoing contact with both parents.
Yeah, it's always a sad thing to divorce.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think
Really.
a lot of people here have been through it. I know it's not a fun process. I mean, do you? Maybe a bad question, but do you enjoy helping people through divorce, or is it like, eh?
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
When it comes to a criminal case, there's the potential to win.
Yeah.
If you didn't do it and somebody's saying you did something you didn't do, you can win.
Right.
At a divorce, winning is these people who at one point hopefully loved each other,
Right.
no longer being together. There's
Yeah.
no...
It's kind of an uncomfortable thing. And then also, you get to the end, and they've been bickering about every little teeny thing the whole way. And then they get to the end, finally, the divorce is final, and they're complaining about their lawyers being so expensive. But if you didn't fight about every little thing, if we
Yeah.
could have settled at mediation two
The
years
more
ago,
the more you fight, the more you pay.
it wouldn't have been quite as expensive.
We always try to do our are invoicing biweekly instead of monthly, and so that way it's like, hey,
Less of a
those,
blow.
those 6
Exactly.
hours of phone calls, here's where they are.
Right, exactly. So let's get back to criminal defense a little bit. I know that's your main area of expertise because you were a prosecutor for how long were you a prosecutor and where?
In Orange County, a little over 3 years.
3 years. And when you look back on that part of your life, that part of your career, I mean, what are your memories like?
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah?
It's you graduate law school, you hanging out with a bunch of people who, for the most part, are within a couple of years of your age. You go to the prosecutor's office or PD's office, and there's 20 or 30 people fresh out of law school, similar ages. You're all together in the trenches with everybody. As opposed to I talk to people that go to some of the PI firms or like that. They may be the only associate there under 35 or 40 when they're coming out of law school at 25.
How many times would you be in the courtroom, public defender on the other side, right, battling in front of the judge? Judge, no, I'm right. And then you found yourself in the same bar about an hour later. Did that happen quite a bit?
And usually it happened intentionally. I mean, everybody has a job to do, and then
Right.
Friday at 5 or hopefully Friday at like 3:30 hits, and you walk downtown.
Oh, Friday at 3:30. There you go. I want those hours.
Mick said Wednesday. Why wait till Friday,
There you
Why
go.
wait till Friday when we have Wednesday?
Oh,
So, I mean, as far as teaching you to be a trial attorney, I mean, if you're talking to someone who's in law school right now and they want to get some trial experience, is being a prosecutor a great way to do that?
Definitely. You're never going to get more trials than as a prosecutor because we're going up against the public defenders for all their cases as well as all the private attorneys.
Wow.
So for the most part, you figure as a trial attorney prosecutor in county court, you really should be going to trial once a month, maybe a little bit more. As a public defender and now as a private attorney, you may only be going once every 3 months or 4 months.
Wow.
I've got a question for divorce lawyers. I mean, when Christmas comes around, do you still get a lot of business? Is there still people that want to?
So the day after Christmas and the day after Thanksgiving, the two biggest for domestic violence, battery charges, and divorce calls.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
I never want to do the holidays again with so-and-so, and, our phone rings.
Is that right? I did not know this.
So that
Yeah.
did it. It's like, I've had
Unbelievable.
enough. I'm out of here.
No,
I'm
I'm sure
done with those
sometimes-
in-laws.
Not
Right. Sometimes
Valentine's
it's the
Day.
in-laws. The old joke, the difference between in-laws and outlaws. Outlaws are wanted.
Yeah,
Which, don't get me wrong, I love my in-laws.
I do too. Mine are great. I got lucky, but I know some are not so great. That's funny. I never heard that before.
I want that joke.
Yeah,
I'm going to use that.
When you start as a prosecutor, do you automatically start down in like speeding tickets or little teeny misdemeanors and you work your way up, or can you start sort of in the middle? How does that work?
So the way it used to work in Orange County is you actually used to start at low-level felonies, and so the thinking there was you're in a courtroom with 5 or 6 other more experienced attorneys, as opposed to in county court there may only be 1 or 2 attorneys there for the whole docket. Depending upon how the system works, that's how they shoot for it in Orange County. Most other counties are going to start you off in misdemeanor. So a lot of times you'll have the 3-month experienced attorney training the 1-week experienced attorney on how to do certain things.
I used to work with a criminal defense attorney, and I used to review all the notes, the depositions and all that, and see all the pictures. And it was it was something that it was a little traumatizing for me. I would take it home, the not just the depositions, what I heard, what I was reading, but also the pictures. Has it desensitized you a little bit, or do you take that home with you? Like, wow, I can't believe that happened. Because for me, it was something really impactful where I couldn't work in criminal any longer.
So my wife and I have actually had this discussion a bunch now that we have a child. How has that changed us? The way that I look at it is, I don't consider myself a true believer on either side, but I consider myself a true believer in the system. And so I always kind of put myself in the shoes of, if somebody was saying I did this, if I was the person who had to go through this, what protections would I want? And when you look at it that way, it's not my job to get somebody off on a technicality. It's my job to make sure that the state did their job, that the cops did their job, that, the case is legally provable. And so it kind of changes the analysis for me.
It's pretty crazy.
It'd be tough to be a lawyer.
Absolutely. How have you learned to be a lawyer? Because, being a law firm owner like you are over at Jordan Law and being a lawyer, a practicing attorney is not that easy. It's not like you're just selling trinkets. You've got to spend time in the courtroom. You've got to spend time doing depositions, but you also have to run your firm. You have to run the business of your firm. I mean, how are you able to balance both?
Well, because I'm 90% a small business owner and 10% a lawyer now. And I've got, we've got 4 attorneys at the firm. The 3 other ones are a lot more active lawyers for exactly what you talked about. There's no way to be an expert on both hats.
Yeah, it is tough, no doubt about it. How have you found actually finding good lawyers to work for you? I mean, have you found it tough to keep the same stable group of lawyers, or is it sort of, they come and go? How do you do that?
So to some extent, I get to cheat. I'm married to one of them, so that's a big help. The other thing is I went to Barry University for law school, and I still coach their trial team. So right now, the 2 associates that I have, I coach them on trial team at Barry. So they worked, they worked with me. I got to see them as fake lawyers on the trial competitions for a couple of years, and then they both went over to the state attorney's office for a little bit before coming on board. So.
Good deal. So I mean, it beats. The money's better than being a prosecutor, I guess, right? I mean, being
Definitely.
a prosecutor, you don't make that much money, or a public defender either.
No.
I mean, they don't really pay that good, but what unbelievable training ground on both sides, really, to learn how to really practice law, I think, right?
Absolutely.
That's great. So one more time, website, email, and...
Jordan at jordanlawfl.com, and our phone number is 407-906-5529.
Thanks for being here, buddy. If you ever need us, let us know. Look forward to seeing you in the future, and best of luck with the practice.
Thanks, and always here for you if I can help you
All
out.
right, man. For Allie Mack, McDowell, and the beautiful Brianna, I'm Justin Clark. Thanks for tuning in to Behind the Law.